You ever notice how some changes sneak up on you? One day you're moving just fine. The next, your legs feel colder than usual. Or you wake up with this vague sense of heaviness, not pain exactly, but something doesn't feel right. Maybe you chalk it up to getting older. Maybe you tell yourself, I just need more sleep, or, it's probably the weather. But deep down, you know something's different. You still get through the day, but it takes more effort than it used to. Your steps aren't as steady. You feel winded a little quicker. And when the day ends, you're more wiped than you should be. These aren't dramatic symptoms. They're quiet, subtle, easy to ignore. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. Because for many men over 60, these small signals are the first whispers of poor circulation or early heart strain. Not a heart attack. Not blocked arteries. But blood not flowing like it should. Tiny vessels tightening. Inner walls inflamed. The heart having to push harder just to do its job. And here's the part most men miss. These issues often build in silence for months, even years before they ever show up on a scan. So if your body's been giving you these small nudges, a cold foot, a heavy chest, a fading sense of power in your walk, don't brush it off. Don't wait until it screams. Because your heart doesn't need panic. It needs partnership. And believe it or not, the very first step to turning this around isn't a prescription. It's a plate. A bite. A morning choice that starts rebuilding your circulation from the inside out. That's where we're headed next. And it starts with a man who thought he was doing everything right until his heart told a different story. His name was Henry. 69 years old. Retired construction manager. He walked into my office looking strong. Tanned arms, firm handshake. The kind of man who still split his own firewood. Didn't take pills. Didn't complain. He smiled as he sat down and said, "Doc, I'm just here for the usual checkup. I feel fine," but something in his voice made me pause. Just a little hesitation between words. A subtle tension behind the eyes. So I asked him, "Anything feel different lately? Even small?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Well, maybe my legs feel heavier these days. I get a little dizzy if I stand up too fast. But that's probably just age, right?" We ran a few tests. His major arteries looked clear. Cholesterol wasn't great, but not terrible. But when we did a cardiac microvascular scan, that's where the truth came out. Henry was showing signs of early microvascular dysfunction. That means the smallest blood vessels in his heart, the capillaries that feed oxygen to the deepest parts, were struggling to stay open. He didn't have a big blockage. He had 1,000 little ones forming slowly, from years of low-level inflammation and missing nutrients. His heart wasn't in crisis. It was exhausted. I looked at him and said gently, "Henry, you're not fine. You're not broken? But your circulation is quietly giving up." He blinked. Didn't say anything for a moment. Then nodded. "Okay, what do I do?" And that's when I didn't reach for a prescription pad. I handed him something far simpler, a list of foods. A 10-minute morning routine. And a second chance. Because men like Henry don't need more panic. They need the truth. Delivered with care. And the truth is, your circulation doesn't collapse overnight. It withers slowly. But it can be rebuilt just as slowly, just as steadily, one bite at a time. And that rebuilding starts with understanding why circulation weakens in the first place. That's what we'll cover next, so you can see what's really happening inside your body, and more importantly, how to take back control of it. There's something most men don't hear from their doctors, and I think it's one of the most important truths about aging. Your blood vessels don't just clog, they stiffen. They forget how to open. And it starts happening quietly long before you ever feel chest pain or shortness of breath. See, when you were younger, your arteries were like soft garden hoses. They flexed. They bent. They responded to your body's signals. Especially to something called nitric oxide, a natural gas your body produces that tells your vessels to relax and open up. But after 60? That nitric oxide production drops hard. For some men, by more than 50%. That means your vessels become more rigid. Blood can't flow as freely. The heart has to push harder, and oxygen delivery gets slower, especially to places like the legs, the brain, and yes, the heart itself. And if you combine that with a little more sugar in the diet, a little more sitting each day, and the gradual inflammation that creeps in with age, you've got a perfect storm: quiet, daily damage to your circulation. Not enough to trigger an emergency, but enough to chip away at your energy, your memory, your confidence. And here's what most men don't realize: this isn't about big heart attacks or scary diagnoses. It's about feeling less and less like yourself over time until one day you can't even explain why. I've had men come in and say, "Doc, I'm just off. I'm slower. I'm heavier. I don't bounce back like I used to." That's poor circulation talking. Not just in your legs but in your brain, your muscles, your heart. But here's the hopeful part: just as your blood flow weakens over time, it can also be rebuilt over time. You don't need medication to do it. Not at first. You need foods that fight inflammation, foods that boost nitric oxide, foods that protect and repair the lining of your blood vessels known as the endothelium. You need what I call the circulation trifecta, 3 superfoods that I've seen make a measurable difference in men who thought their best days were behind them. And that's exactly what I'll show you next. Because when you start feeding your blood vessels the right way, your entire life starts moving differently. If there's one food I wish more men over 60 knew about, it's this one. Not a pill. Not a powder. Just a humble root vegetable, the beet. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Beets? Really? Maybe you haven't touched one since childhood? Maybe you don't love the taste. But here's why beets matter and why they've become my go-to food for men who want better circulation. Beets are rich in natural dietary nitrates. And once those nitrates enter your body, your system converts them into something powerful: nitric oxide. We talked about nitric oxide earlier, how it's the signal that tells your blood vessels to relax and open up. Well, when you eat beets, you're literally giving your body the raw material to make that signal stronger. That means, checkmark better blood flow, checkmark lower blood pressure, checkmark more oxygen reaching your heart, brain, and muscles, checkmark less strain on the heart with every beat. I had a patient named Ray, 65, retired firefighter. He wasn't in crisis, but he felt flat, as he put it. He said, "I walk up the stairs and I'm out of breath." Not gasping, but enough to notice. And that never used to happen. I had him start drinking 4 ounces of beet juice every morning, on an empty stomach. That's it. No medications. No overhaul. Just a daily dose of natural nitric oxide. After 10 days, he came back and said, "Doc, I feel lighter on my feet, like something got unblocked." It's not magic. It's not hype. It's just biology doing what it's been trying to do for years, finally getting help. If beet juice isn't your thing, you can roast them, steam them, or blend them into a smoothie. Even just a half cup a few times a week makes a difference. And here's a tip: pair them with foods rich in vitamin C like citrus or berries to boost absorption and nitric oxide production even further. This is step 1. The foundation. Because if you can't move blood efficiently, nothing else you eat or take will work the way it should. Beets open the highways. And now, we turn to the protectors of the small roads, the capillaries that feed your brain, your nerves, your heart tissue. That's where we go next. And they're smaller, sweeter, and more powerful than most men ever realize. If beets open up the highways of your circulation, berries protect the back roads, the tiny capillaries that carry oxygen to your brain, your eyes, your fingers, and the most delicate tissues of your heart. And those small vessels? They're the first to suffer when inflammation creeps in. The first to get damaged when blood sugar rises. The first to stiffen when nitric oxide runs low. But here's the good news, they're also the most responsive if you feed them the right protection. And that's exactly what berries do. I'm talking about the small, colorful ones. Blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, raspberries, fruits you've seen 100 times and probably overlooked. These aren't just sweet toppings. They're loaded with anthocyanins, a group of antioxidants that fight inflammation where it starts, in the lining of your blood vessels. Anthocyanins help strengthen fragile capillaries, lower oxidative stress, prevent cholesterol from sticking to artery walls, improve blood flow to the brain and heart, protect memory and nerve sensitivity. I once had a patient, Dan, 71. He'd been having trouble focusing. Nothing major, just that slow fog that creeps in around mid-morning. He also told me he was waking up with numb fingers now and then. We talked about circulation, and I suggested a simple change. 1 cup of mixed berries every morning, with breakfast, or in a smoothie, or on top of yogurt. No pills, no prescriptions, just fruit. 2 weeks later, Dan sent me an email that simply said, clearer, lighter, sharper. Sometimes the most powerful change doesn't come from something new but from using something familiar, finally in the right way. And here's something else. When you eat berries alongside beets or other high nitrate foods, they enhance the nitric oxide effect. It's a 1-2 punch. Beets open the vessels. Berries protect and nourish them. Try them fresh. Frozen works too, just make sure they're unsweetened. Toss them on your oatmeal, blend them in, or eat them slowly with a spoon in a moment of silence. Because every berry is a drop of medicine. And for your capillaries, it's the difference between fading and flowing. Next, we'll look at the final superfood in this healing trio: tiny seeds with a massive impact on the heart. If beets open your arteries and berries protect your capillaries, then these little seeds? They calm the fire that causes damage in the first place. I'm talking about flax seeds, chia seeds, and hemp hearts. Tiny, often forgotten, but absolutely essential if you're a man over 60 who cares about his heart. Here's why. These seeds are some of the richest plant-based sources of omega-3 fatty acids. And omega-3s are your body's built-in firefighters. They don't just reduce inflammation. They calm your nervous system, help your heart maintain a steady rhythm, and lower the kind of internal pressure that slowly wears down your blood vessels. They also contain magnesium, relaxes artery walls and lowers blood pressure. Soluble fiber, helps regulate cholesterol and blood sugar. Plant lignans, protect against arterial stiffness and oxidative damage. I remember one man, Joseph, 74. He was dealing with high triglycerides, and his cardiologist was starting to talk medication. But Joseph wasn't ready for that path. He asked me, "Doc, is there something I can do on my end, naturally?" I said yes. And we started with just one change: 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed every morning. Sprinkled into his oatmeal. Blended into his smoothie. Mixed into his yogurt. Nothing else changed. He didn't overhaul his life. He just added the seeds. When he returned 6 weeks later, his triglycerides had dropped. His blood pressure had eased. But what mattered most? He told me, "I feel more in control again, like I'm part of the solution now." That's what this is about. You don't need to memorize every supplement. You just need a handful of habits that feed your system what it actually remembers: real nutrients, in their natural form. And seeds like flax, chia, and hemp? They're nature's quiet powerhouses. You don't taste them much. But your arteries feel them. And your heart responds beat by steady beat. Now that you've met the 3 superfoods: beets, berries, and omega-3 seeds, it's time to put them together. In one simple morning habit that takes less than 5 minutes, but can change the way your entire body moves through the day. We'll build that routine next. You don't need an expensive supplement. You don't need a strict meal plan. And you definitely don't need to overhaul your life overnight. What you need is a rhythm. A simple, repeatable way to tell your body, I haven't forgotten you. I'm here to rebuild, and the best place to begin? Your breakfast. 5 minutes. 3 powerful foods. 1 daily ritual. Here's what I recommend for men over 60 who want better heart health and stronger circulation. Start your morning with a glass of beet juice. About 4 ounces. Drink it first thing before coffee, before food. This is your natural nitric oxide boost, helping your vessels open and your blood move freely. Then, build your bowl. Oats as the base. Just half a cup, cooked warm. Top it with a handful of fresh or frozen berries. Blueberries are my favorite. Add 1 tablespoon of chia seeds, flax seeds, or both. Right there, in that bowl, you've given your heart. Nitric oxide support, capillary protection, omega-3 anti-inflammatory power, magnesium, fiber, antioxidants. This is not just breakfast. This is circulatory therapy. And if you pair that meal with just 5 to 10 minutes of slow movement, a morning walk, some stretches, even a few deep breaths by the window, you complete the loop. You've woken up your blood. You've honored your heart. You've told your body, we're not coasting anymore, we're choosing to move forward on purpose. I've had men call this their anchor. Not because it slows them down, but because it grounds them. And the best part? You don't need to get it perfect. You just need to repeat it. Again and again, until your body begins to trust that strength is returning. Because this ritual may feel small, but it touches everything. Beating heart, your brain, leg, your legs, lungs, your breath, slightly smiling face, and yes, your confidence. So tomorrow morning, before the day pulls you in 100 directions, step into this moment. Just you, your breakfast, and your decision to live stronger. Because the only thing more powerful than food is a man who shows up for himself every morning. If you've made it this far, then you already know something powerful. You care. You're not coasting through this stage of life. You're not sitting back, waiting for decline. You're still in the fight. And more importantly, you're choosing to rebuild. Not from fear. Not from shame. But from self-respect. Because here's the truth. Your heart hasn't given up on you. Your blood vessels haven't shut down. They've just been waiting for your partnership. And now you know how to give it, not with pills. Not with restriction. But with food. With rhythm. With care. Beets to open the pathways. Berries to protect them. Seeds to calm the fires within. 1 plate, 1 glass. 1 5-minute act of nourishment. Every morning. Without noise. Without pressure. Just a man, choosing to stand with his body instead of against it. And I'll say this one more time, you are not broken. You are rebuildable. Your circulation is not done, it's waiting. Your heart is not tired, it's teachable. Your story is not over, it's entering a new chapter. So tomorrow morning, when you walk into your kitchen, and the world hasn't asked anything of you yet, ask something of yourself. What does my heart need from me today? Then answer it. Not with perfection. But with presence. A quiet glass of beet juice. A warm bowl topped with berries and seeds. A few deep breaths. A few steps in the morning light. It doesn't sound like much. But I promise you this is how strength comes back. And if this message resonated with you even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you love. A brother. A neighbor. A friend who might be fading silently. Tell them this. Your heart still knows how to fight. It just needs to be fed. And if you begin this ritual, if you feel even the slightest shift, come back here and comment. My heart is stronger. Because your story could be the very thing that gives another man his second chance. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for choosing to stay in your story.